Welcome into another edition. I forgot to add us to the show. Here we go. We're back. I got a little caught off guard right before we went live because we got news that Alexander Georgiev is going to start again tonight. Second half of back-to-back for him. They are going to hold Vanacek out for trade-related reasons, and I was reading that and trying to process that and how that was going to affect my night, and then I completely forgot to just even add us to the show. So here we go. We're back. Before we get into it, Peter's wondering, what is this new dynamic pricing you keep mentioning? When did it start and how does it work? So somebody in the DFO DFS Discord had mentioned that the pricing seemed different, and then we started paying attention to it. We're like, boy, pricing does seem weird. And I still think the pricing is different. I still think the pricing is weird. It's definitely changing a lot more than it did before. Like, people were pretty stagnant for a while, and then they would change a couple $100. Now it's $1,000 fluctuations on a night-to-night basis. Like, the pricing definitely feels different. But Zach, you said screw it. I'm just going to reach out to DraftKings and see what they say. And they told you that pricing is the same.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the message that I got from their support team again here. If I can find it, they said, and I quote, the way we have determined player salaries has not changed. It is all based on historical statistics and other factors, such as players' recent statistics and upcoming matchups. There could be many reasons that salaries shift, but it is all based on multiple factors like the player performance in game. I'm just going to say it out right here, Brock. I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying it, especially when you look at the top of the echelon here, like Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, high 9K, low 10K guys on a regular basis all season. That hasn't been the case the last couple of weeks here. So I don't know. Apparently nothing's changed. So
maybe we're just losing it. It feels different. It feels very different. I've seen a lot of other people talk about it. It's definitely different. So maybe that person didn't get the memo or what, but we're going to continue to talk about new pricing because it feels new. It's way harder to find value. The expensive players aren't quite as expensive. Middle price players seem to be more expensive than they've ever been. I mean, we'll get to it in a minute. We'll break this slate down. Let's get to the goalies. Sam Harrison starts the Philadelphia Flyers. It's likely going to be Dustin Wolf for the Calgary Flames. Jonas Johansson projected to get the start for the Tampa Bay Lightning in the second half of a back-to-back for them. Elvis Merzlikins confirmed to get the nod for the Blue Jackets. UPL projected to get the start for the Buffalo Sabres. Second half of a back-to-back for them with James Reimer going yesterday. As I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, Alexander Georgiev confirmed to get the start for the Sharks. It's going to be Alex Lyon for the Detroit Red Wings as they host the Carolina Hurricanes, who are expected to go with Frederik Andersen as their goaltending rotation continues. Jeremy Swayman gets a start for the Boston Bruins. It's going to be UC Saros for the Nashville Predators. Unconfirmed who gets a start for the Islanders. When asked yesterday if Sorokin would go both games of the back-to-back, Patrick Waugh did not commit one way or the other. We have Sorokin projected. It could definitely be Jakub Skarek, but we'll find out probably closer to lock or at least basically at lock when that warm-up starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. Connor Hellebuyck expected to start for the Winnipeg Jets. It'll be Casey Smith for the Dallas Stars and Jacob Markstrom for the New Jersey Devils, who will be without Jack Hughes. The Avalanche will roll with Scott Wedgwood. It'll be Alex Nedeljkovic for the Penguins. The Oilers will roll with Calvin Pickard for the second straight time for the first time since the playoffs last year, if I recall correctly.
Is correct.
And it's projecting to see Lukas Dostal for the Anaheim Ducks. So likely Joey Decord and Philip Gustafsson in the late game. It's we were talking about this game earlier, how it's basically could have like a 3.5 implied total and still might consider the under. It looks pretty awful. So Peter, hopefully we cleared that up for you a little bit. I've noticed the fluctuations are massive all of a sudden. Gotcha. Thanks. A lot harder to build a lineup that I'm fully happy with. That's for sure. Yeah, that's what I'm finding too. Like, I feel like you used to be able to find at least, a good stack and a reasonable stack to put together. Now it feels like every night there's like 2 decent value stacks that I even feel happy with. So yeah, we'll talk about the good pricing again tonight. Let's start with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Calgary Flames. We've got a big 10-game slate to get through here, so I don't want to waste too much time. Matchup-wise tonight, really, really good matchup here for our favorite line in the league, or one of them. Philadelphia 1. You're going to see a lot of Philadelphia 2 against the second line of the Flames. You're going to see a lot of the third line against the fourth line and a lot of the fourth line against the third line. Those matchups a little bit less quality for the Philadelphia Flyers. Pretty brutal matchups across the board here for the Flames. Worth mentioning, a little bit of revenge narrative on both sides here. Obviously, these two teams made a pretty big trade a couple weeks ago. You've got Kuzmenko and Peltier going up against their former teams from the Flyer side of things, and then you've got Farabee and Morgan Frost going up against their former team in the Flyers tonight. So, Zach, we really like Philadelphia 1 here at the DFS report. It's a line that we've been talking about a lot. It's a line that's had a lot of success. Not a line that really dominates. They generate a decent amount of looks. They convert on basically the exact expected amount that you'd expect. They do a good job generating high danger looks. They go up against a Calgary top line that hasn't been very good defensively, giving up plenty of high danger looks. So it looks like a matchup here that Philadelphia 1 is capable of taking advantage of yet again. We've seen them have some big nights recently. The reason why we continue to like them is that John Tortorella absolutely loves them. Plays them a ton, projected for 30% of the 5v5 ice time. We've seen them really start to take on a little bit more of a power play role too. As of late, fully correlating on the second power play unit. So there's a lot to like here about Philadelphia 1. And as we mentioned, pricing is tough. And when you look at the big board here, I mean, the top line, basically the top 6 lines are $20,000 or above. Let's call it $19,000 and above. Tampa Bay 1 is 8 through 22,000. Basically the entire top 10 is like $19,000 or more. There's not a lot of really cheap line stacks to go along with them. New Jersey 1's one that stands out at 16,500. San Jose is a little bit cheaper at 17,100. Tampa 2 looks good at 14,300. But then Philadelphia 1 is by far and away the best cheap option on the slate at 11,500. They grade out 14th best overall, which is awesome. Again, a lot of that's due to 5v5. You take a look at their 5v5 score, they rank even higher. They would be the 9th best line in terms of 5v5. So they don't obviously have a ton of power play love. They do see some usage there. They're not going to see a lot of ownership tonight, basically 4% across the board. That's a mark that me and you, I think, will be definitely over tonight, just because, they look quite clearly like one of the better value options on the entire slate. Zach, before we dive too far into Philadelphia 1, I do think these other lines for the Flyers look pretty decent as well. Philadelphia 2's looked okay. Philadelphia 3 specifically is interesting. They've looked awesome as of late. Their underlying metrics are quite good. Matvei Michkov, more than anybody, is a strong one-off play, in my opinion. I don't think I'm going to get too carried away with full stacking this game outside of Philadelphia 1. It'll probably be a lot of Philadelphia 1 and a lot of Michkov one-offs for me, and that's probably the extent of my ownership in this one. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with you here. Obviously, we talk about this pricing that hasn't changed whatsoever. It's hard to find, cheap lines to play. And the Flyers have a couple here that look viable here tonight. Philly 1 is going to be of great interest to me here on this slate tonight. $11,500 to full stack these guys. Even going mini stack routes, I think, is one way that I've been finding myself building a lot more lineups here as of late. And it feels like when we look at the ownership numbers, especially on the chalkier lines, it feels very similar as to what the field has been doing lately. So I love the idea of full stacking these guys, obviously, but I think mini stacks are certainly viable as well here. Noah Cates and Tyson Forster, kind of the two that I keep going back to. You get a little bit more salary relief there with Bobby Brink at $3,600. Hasn't been a ton of volume or anything like that as of late here. The scoring's cooled off a little bit, but this matchup is a really great one here for this Flyers top line. And again, the usage, that's something that we absolutely love to see here. So, I've got interest in Philly 1 and with Philadelphia 3 as well. Matvei Michkov, I wrote him up as one of my top value play options tonight. $4,600 tonight, projecting for 9.1% ownership here, just on an absolute heater here. I mean, the rookie of the month in the month of February, 1.4 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 3.0 points per hour, 10.1 shots on goal per hour of ice time. If you're looking for some volume in your lineups tonight, this Philly 3 line, I think, is kind of a good way to go, because you got Owen Tippett there, scoring 1.8 goals per hour over his last 20 games. Granted, he is seeing, less ice time than he was earlier in the year here, but 9.8 shots on goal per hour. I mean, even a guy like Sean Couturier, 7.5 shots on goal per hour, a solid clip there as well. So I like both of these lines here, this first and this third line. I don't think I'll be getting to this second line much, maybe some Travis Konechny one-offs. Kuzmenko at $5,500, I cannot get behind that. And Scott Laughton, I mean, I'm going to pass on playing him in DFS, and I cannot wait for the Toronto Maple Leafs to trade Fraser Minton and a first round pick for him. It's going to be absolutely hilarious. The Calgary Flames side of things, Pretty bleak matchups across the board here. Doesn't really feel like a spot that I'm going to get to a lot here. The Flyers, granted, they have been giving up a little bit more goals against here as of late. They've still been a pretty strong team, though, for a good run defensively.
Yeah, the Flyers are definitely a solid defensive team, and the Flames we've talked about, just they don't score much to begin with, but they specifically do not score much on the road. In their last 10 games, they are scoring 1.15 goals for per 60 at 5v5. Utterly horrendous numbers. So yeah, I'm not buying into the Flames tonight, given how poor the offense has been as of late. Okay, let's move on to game number 2. We've got the Lightning and we've got the Blue Jackets. The Lightning, a little bit disappointing last night in Florida. Good game, fun game to watch, though. They are still minus 152 home favorites tonight, despite being on a back-to-back with potentially Jonas Johansson between the pipes. A bit of a surprising number there, in my opinion. 3.6 implied total. The Blue Jackets 2.9. The Blue Jackets, super interesting, right? We know this offense has been good all year, one of the best offenses in the league. They have been the best offense in the league at home. On the road, still kind of have some road woes to work out at times, but they are going to get Igor Chinnikov back. He was on pace for nearly a 30-30 season before he got hurt in November. His first game since November 27th. Boone Jenner, 7 assists in 4 games since returning to the lineup. Kent Johnson's got 21 points in his last 21 games. So that second line's really starting to, make noise and give them some secondary scoring, where it's been mostly this first line, whether it be the Fantilli line or the Monahan line earlier in the season, that's really carried the water for this team most of the season. But got a little bit more depth now in the top 6. And the reason I bring up Columbus too is they have the better of the two matchups. They're going to be the line that sees the Kucherov line a little bit more. That Kucherov line just not quite as good defensively as the Cirelli line, by far the worst defensive line that the Lightning have. So to me, I think that Columbus 2 is a little bit interesting tonight. I'm not going to get too carried away, I don't think. But with Jonas Johansson potentially getting the start, I do think the Blue Jackets are obviously in play. Columbus 1, though, grades out 24th at 16,800. So again, can't tell me the pricing isn't different. They were like $20,000 last week, and now they're 16,800. Anyways, I'm not going to bring it up too much. Columbus 2, just 14,100. I think this is another one of those lines that's pretty reasonably priced. All 3 of these guys playing well. Obviously, Chinnikov hasn't played in a while, but Jenner and Johnson have been playing great. Johnson, the top power play unit. I think that there's something here with this line at 14,100. Like I said, not a ton of really cheap lines to pair with, but pretty interested in the Lightning side of things here. Obviously, it's a Lightning offense that's been really, really solid as of late, converting, both on the power play and at 5v5. They, been getting tremendous goaltending from Andrei Vasilevsky, winning lots of games. But this is also a Blue Jackets team that, yes, okay, they beat the Red Wings outdoors on Saturday, but they gave up 47 shots in that game, and they are certainly susceptible to ugly defensive performances. So I do think that the Tampa Bay Lightning are certainly in play tonight. The general public seems to really like Tampa Bay 1 at $22,000. They're one of the higher owned lines on the slate. In fact, they're projected to be the second highest owned line on the slate. I really still find myself, much like I did last night, going to Tampa Bay 2. Again, hard to find cheap options. I think Hagel at 6,600 and Cirelli at 4,500 is a really nice mini stack that's fairly affordable. That's probably the route that I'm going to end up going. You see here, right? We've got Tampa 1 grade out 8th best, but a lot of these other $20,000, $19,000 lines grade out quite a bit better, and I think are in better matchups and have better, in better spots. So I'll probably end up getting to more of them than Tampa 1 and just finding myself more on the second line of both of these teams in this one. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree with you here. I got some interest in these second lines. Boone Jenner seems to be, coming back and looking fairly well in doing so. Obviously, a pretty limited sample so far since he's returned, but I mean, the numbers and the metrics on per hour rates are tremendous here. So, good sign there. You mentioned Kent Johnson. He's been great so far this season, continuing to chug along, scoring at a pretty high clip, really shooting the lights out. I imagine at some point we're going to see some regression there. Have a really hard time thinking it's coming against Jonas Johansson, who has played 3 games against the Columbus Blue Jackets in his career. No wins in those games, a 5.76 goals against average, and an 841 save percentage. So this does seem like a great spot here to get in on the Blue Jackets. I'm probably going to be a bit over the field here on this Columbus side of things in terms of the top 6. Pretty low ownership coming in across the board on the Blue Jackets. Just 3.7% on that first line, 2.5% on that second line. It does feel a little bit scary just because of how good the Lightning have been as a whole here as of late. But, I think a lot of that is coming with a huge save percentage over their last 10 games, 95.7 at 5-on-5. Vasilevsky has just been absolutely lights out here as of late. So I could see a little bit of regression in those numbers here, for the Lightning goaltending with Johansson in the crease. So I think it's a reason to get to the Blue Jackets here. I don't think I'll be going too crazy. Probably like 10% on each, I think is more than fair in my 20 max here tonight. The Lightning side of things, it goes without saying to have interest in them. Obviously that top line is going to be quite difficult to get to at $22,000, especially when you look at, the pricing that has remained the same here from what it was earlier in the season. So, Tampa 2, I think, is a great little pivot option. I wrote up Anthony Cirelli as one of my top value plays here today. The numbers as of late haven't necessarily been great, but this just feels like a great spot for him to kind of bounce back. Over his last 20 games, he's only shooting 6% versus like 17% on the season as a whole. So expecting some regression in a positive direction for him in terms of his goal scoring here. And I think this is a great spot for that to happen. So, I'll be probably getting to the field here on Tampa 1 around 10%. I'll probably be easy double, maybe even triple a field on some Tampa 2 stacks tonight.
These two teams met back in November in Columbus, so obviously where they scored more goals. But Jonas Johansson got the start that night, and the Columbus Blue Jackets won 7-6. So potential fireworks tonight. Kucherov had 3 points in that game. Cirelli had 2 points. Hagel had 2 points. And then on the Blue Jacket side of things, a 5-point night for Zach Werenski, 4 points for Sean Monahan, 2 goals for Kent Johnson. So there is potential fireworks here. Obviously, we talk about a lot. The Blue Jackets not quite the same team on the road, though. I forgot to talk about the power play in the first game. I guess for obvious reasons, both of them stink on the power play. Both penalty kills are good. They got 2 of the worst power play advantages of the night. In this Tampa Bay Columbus game, the Lightning have the 5th best power play advantage tonight. They got the 12th best power play going up against the 22nd ranked penalty kill over their last 10 games. So decent upside there. I think obviously, last night I was talking about maybe being a little bit cautious with Darren Radish because they were going with 7 defensemen and he might not play that much. He played 20 minutes last night. I don't know if that's going to happen again tonight, but he obviously still a strong value option on the blue line at $2,900 still on that top power play unit. So if you're playing Tampa 1, pairing him up there is pretty decent. I still think you could probably play him with Tampa 2 as well. He was the highest minute defenseman that they played with last night was Darren Radish. Again, it was kind of like an even split among everybody, but if you need that extra salary relief, there is some 5v5 correlation there with them as well. Obviously, Victor Hedman, I think, is the best option if you can get there, but it's not always that easy. Let's move on to game number 3. We've got the Buffalo Sabres and the San Jose Sharks. Obviously, the Sabres really, really sluggish start last night. The Montreal top line basically broke the slate wide open in the first period. The Sabres really dominated that game pretty much thereafter, though, in the second and third period, and then end up falling just short. But big favorites again tonight. The Sharks looked good last night against the Maple Leafs. Obviously, a tough spot going here on a back-to-back. But, this top line for the Sabres, man, they still look so good. The matchup here is really good. They're going to see about half of their ice time coming up against San Jose 3 tonight. San Jose 3, really, really poor defensive metrics across the board. And these numbers for Buffalo 1 continue to be just superb. So I have absolutely no hesitation to go back to Buffalo 1 tonight. They were fine again last night. It was a little, again, slow out of the gate, but ended up kind of getting there. Strong shot volume as we've come to expect out of them. So, really like getting back to this trio tonight. The offensive metrics are great. The matchup is great. Lots to like there. They grade out 3rd best overall, which is great news because they are 6th in terms of ownership. So you can definitely have some leverage on Buffalo tonight. I think that they're in a really, really nice spot. And $19,000 is the cheapest among the top 6 lines here in the line stacks page. So I like Buffalo 1 a lot. I don't know how much depth I'm going to get to of the Sabres. I really just don't think that their depth is that great right now. And, in terms of generating offense, the matchups also get worse the further you go down the lineup. And then no surprise that so does the offensive numbers. So, maybe mixing a little bit of Buffalo too, but I still think that most of my ownership's coming in on this top line for the Sabres. And the same thing goes with the Sharks. We talked about it last night. It's really difficult to see the rest of this lineup doing much. I will say that in a smaller sample size, 1 too small to use in the charts, San Jose 2's offensive numbers have actually been okay. So if you wanted to mix them in, I just think that that's kind of a desperation desperation move. Probably don't need to get that far down the lineup. I think this top line for the Sharks is more than good enough, and obviously the matchup for them is quite good as well. It's a much better matchup than San Jose too, and then they grade out in the top 10 as well at just 17,100. So I do think that this game's pretty interesting. It's kind of getting overlooked. There's some ownership coming in on both sides, but not a tremendous amount. Again, about 7% across the board for Buffalo 1, about 5% across the board for San Jose 1. So yeah, pretty interested in this game. I think it's got some potential fireworks here, and both lines are have fairly affordable price tags. How about you in this one, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. I got a lot of interest in the Buffalo Sabres here. Obviously, that top line goes without saying how productive they've been here as of late, just on an absolute heater of all heaters. $19,000 I think is a more than fair price for me. To get double the field here, projecting for around 7% ownership. I have no issue doubling that up with them being the third line to target overall in this slate. I think for me, I'm a little more comfortable getting down to this Buffalo 2 line than I think you are, specifically around, a mini stack of Dylan Cousins and Alex Tuch. The prices are pretty reasonable for these guys. They both project out extremely well here tonight from a raw projection standpoint. Alex Tuch is just absolutely been crushing it over his last 20 games. 1.7 goals per hour of ice time versus 1.6 individual expected goals. He's shooting 19% against a 16% average on the year. 9.2 shots on goal per hour of ice time. He is firing the puck at will here as of late. Oh yeah, and both him and Dylan Cousins have lit up the Sharks in the past. Tuch has 10 goals and 18 points in 22 games played. Dylan Cousins, 3 goals and 9 points in 7 games. So for me, I've got no issue getting there, especially with Alexander Georgiev in the crease tonight, who's been really terrible against the Sabres in his career. He's probably been terrible against a lot of teams, but 5 wins in 11 games played, 328 goals against average, and an 886 save percentage. So no issue here in getting up and loading up on the Buffalo Sabres here tonight. I think the Sharks are a pretty interesting play here in this spot as well. We saw what Montreal 1 did. Montreal 1 was able to do last night, going up against this the Sabres team. And I have no reason to think that this, Macklin Celebrini, Tyler Toffoli mini stack can get there as well here tonight. I mean, again, these guys, as we've talked about a lot as of late, just absolute volume hounds in terms of shooting the puck here lately. So I got no issue getting up there here with some San Jose 1. Hopefully they see a little bit more than 25% of their ice time against that Buffalo 1 line, but it looks to be a pretty nice spot for them here in this game as well. One of the higher paced games on the night too, with a 100.5 pace score.
Yeah, just going back to Alex Tuch for a moment. In his last 10 games, he leads or tied with Tage Thompson for the team lead with 7 goals. He leads the team with 35 shots on goal, so averaging 3.5 shots on goal per game, 12 points in his last 10 games. He's definitely been rolling. I probably like him a little bit more as a one-off. Maybe some Dylan Cousins minis, not too shabby there. And then last night, just to go back to Buffalo 1 for a second, 18-4 with the shot attempts when they were on the ice at 5v5. They outchanced the Canadiens 10-2. So pretty good. One thing I did want to bring up here, though, bring up the team trends chart here. The Sharks, man, this defense is coming around. They've, we see it in the numbers. We've seen it in the charts, like by a line stat standpoint. Last 10 games, their defensive quality has been much better. Still struggling on the PK a bit, but it's not really something that the Sabres have been super, super good at. So the Sharks, maybe not quite as easy as a matchup as of late as they have been for the rest of the season. In terms of the power play in this one, pretty bleak on both sides. Both power plays have been pretty stinky as of late. Both PK is not great either, though. Both teams fairly undisciplined. So they do grade out 6th and 8th best overall, mostly just on a volume standpoint, but both PK is not ideal either. Okay. Let's move on. We've got my Detroit Red Wings hosting the Carolina Hurricanes tonight. The Hurricanes are minus 188 road favorites, 3.6 implied total. The Red Wings certainly haven't been great coming out of the break. They looked a lot better, obviously, against the Blue Jackets on the weekend, but still were unable to get the dub in that game. You take a look at the matchups here, obviously bad, right? Like, this looks like the highest event game of the night, but the matchups on the Red Wings side of things, really, really rough. This is a very good Carolina Hurricanes team. Great matchup for the top line of the Hurricanes, which is really starting to turn things around after a bit of a sluggish start in the Rantanen era. The second line for the Hurricanes has the number 1 matchup overall. I'll be a little bit surprised if this is the way things shake out tonight. Like, I don't know why you would put Patrick Kane against Jordan Staal. It doesn't seem like the ideal setup. I would think that you're going to see more of Patrick Kane's line up against Carolina 3 and a little bit more of the Detroit third line up against the Jordan Staal line. I think that's more likely, but still, they do try to get JT Confer out there in a bit of a defensive posture sometimes. But I would not be playing Patrick Kane's line against Jordan Stalls if I could avoid it. It does not seem like an advantageous matchup on home ice for the Red Wings. So overall, like, I'm not going to get too carried away with the 100% matchup score. But again, there's not a lot of value on the slate. And Carolina 3 looks like they're in a pretty good spot tonight. They grade out 27th, but they're just 10th. Or sorry, Carolina 2 now. My mistake. They grade out 19th best. They're just 13,600. Pretty affordable price tags, obviously, on Stahl and Martinook. Really decent salary, 6,900 for Jarvis. So not seeing any ownership. I don't mind them here at the 100% matchup score. I'm not going to get carried away, but 10% perhaps. Carolina 1 definitely piques my interest a lot. They're only 5% owned. They've looked great as of late. The underlying metrics here are superb. They're very, very good. They really haven't, to no one's surprise, converted at the rate that we'd expect them to, because the first handful of games were not great. So really think that they are in for some more big games moving forward. The Red Wings aren't great defensively, obviously. They continue to struggle at 5v5, 2.88 expected goals against per 60 over the last 10, but the penalty kill continues to just be an absolute travesty to humanity. So that's why I like Carolina 1 a lot tonight, because they obviously fully correlate on that top power play unit with Shane Gostisbehere. And I mean, they're in a good spot at 5v5, and they're gonna be able to score on the power play tonight, because the Red Wings just can't for the life of them kill penalties. So really, really like this Carolina top line. I'm gonna sprinkle in that second line. I don't know how much Detroit I'm gonna get to. It'll be a lot of the same, just kind of a little bit of Detroit 1 probably. They still grade out 11th best. They're seeing basically no ownership. Frederik Andersen hasn't been particularly sharp, so I'll get to a little bit of Detroit 1, but I just think there's better spots on the slate as a whole. I'm just pulling up Freddie's numbers here before I throw it to you. So since the break, he's given up 6 goals on 48 shots for an 875 save percentage. He's lost 4 consecutive starts with an 878 save percentage. So hasn't been sharp. I think Detroit's okay, but I probably wouldn't get past that top line.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I might get to like 5% Detroit 1 here. I don't really see myself getting a whole lot more. This Carolina Hurricanes team, for as much as they continue to struggle offensively, they're still playing strong defensive hockey here as of late. So, I think for me, I got a lot of interest in this Carolina side of things too, particularly around that top line. I mean, Mikko Rantanen shooting just 6% over his last 20 games. That is not going to last. He is way too talented of a player to shoot that low for an extended period of time. So I like this as a really good rebound spot here. For Carolina to get back into the goal column. I'll be over the field on Carolina 1 for sure, at 5%, easily double the field, maybe even a little bit more. And I'll definitely have some of this Carolina 2 in there. I mean, I love playing this Jordan Stahl, Jordan Martinook mini stack here. And, if you're comfortable or you have the salary, Seth Jarvis, a totally fine play there as well. You can throw in Shane Gostisbehere for a little power play correlation there as well. I really like the look of this Carolina side of things tonight. I think they're one of the teams I'm definitely going to be building quite a bit of lineups around here on this slate tonight. I just think that this top line is just far too talented to score as little as they have as of late here. One saving grace, I suppose, is that Sebastian Aho has kind of lit up offensively here as of late, particularly in the goal scoring, 1.5 goals per hour, shooting like 18% over his last 20 games. So that's always nice to see there. And it helps too that, both Aho and Rantanen have lit up the Red Wings in the past in their careers.
Yeah, like they're getting overlooked a little bit tonight, I think, because there's so many other good matchups. But when you take a look at the big board here, Boston's in a pretty good spot. Edmonton, Anaheim's played better as of late. Colorado obviously is always going to draw ownership, but Pittsburgh's decent. Like the Hurricanes might be in the best spot overall, just given how bad this Red Wings PK has been. So I think this is an interesting spot. I do think they're getting a little bit overlooked compared to like the Oilers and the Avalanche tonight. In terms of that power play, they have the number 4 ranked power play advantage because their power play has really struggled, but that's not a power play unit that I'm like really scared is going to continue to struggle, especially not in this matchup. So the Red Wings second best power play advantage overall. The Hurricanes do take a fair amount of penalties. The Red Wings power play, to their credit, as bad as the penalty kill's been, the power play's really just kept them in it this season. And it's been just basically one of the top 3 units in the league for since Christmas, basically. Okay. Boston and Nashville. So the Predators continue to just be pretty much pathetic. I don't think that there's really any way you could convince me to play the Nashville Predators and spend any money whatsoever on them. Since the break, they've come back and scored 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 goals in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. They've been shut out twice, 9 goals in 6 games. Hard pass. What's interesting for the Bruins is that Brad Marchand is now out week to week. The trickle-down effect here is that now you have the top line fully correlating on the top power play unit. Pavel Zacha has now replaced Marchand on that top PP unit. That's good news. And this is a line that's had success. They've got a great matchup tonight. They've been solid for the last little bit. The metrics don't pop off the board, but they score, they play a ton, and now they fully correlate in the top power play unit. I think that all sets up very nicely for them. All three of them have put up a lot of points over the last month or so. Zach is still more of a guy that's going to rely on the assist as opposed to the shot volume and the goals, but the addition to PP1 there, I think, really helps kind of bolster his value overall. They grade out 4th best for me tonight. They are drawing a decent amount of ownership, but I'm really interested in this Boston top line because of this newfound power play exposure. I think that's pretty interesting. The power play matchup is 3rd best tonight as well. They go up against a Nashville team that takes a ton of penalties. They are 13th best in the power play over the last 10. They go up against 21st ranked PK. Sets up really nicely here with a good power play matchup, a good 5v5 matchup. They're pretty affordable. All things considered, considering Pasternak's $9,300. You're seeing Mason Lowry's salary come up a little bit. He's $4,600 tonight, so it's a fairly expensive stack, but I think that's going to help keep the ownership down a little bit, and it's one that I'm going to get to quite a bit. Without Marchand, I don't think there's any reason to get to the depth pieces here of the Bruins, and I'm just not playing the Predators until further notice. So, what are you thinking here with the Bruins tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're in an absolute smash spot here tonight. In terms of total raw projections for lines, they grade out number 1 overall on the slate here. So clearly a lot of love here for this Bruins top line. I got a lot of interest in playing them. I'll be up over the field on them 10, 15%, no problem whatsoever there. I mean, I've been playing them fairly regularly here as of late, largely around the Kiki Pasta low rise stacks, but I'm comfortable getting some Pavel Zacha in there tonight. The one really nice thing about this line here is, like, obviously they're going to see a huge chunk of ice time, 33% of it, but 72% of their total ice time is going up against the top 6 of the Nashville Predators, who have just been absolutely horrendous defensively here as of late. So this seems like a great spot for the Bruins. I know somebody in the chat was saying those Bruins projections seem wildly high. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they're pretty justified here. I mean, you look at this Nashville side of things, they have been absolutely terrible defensively here for quite a while now, and there's really no signs of it changing either. And I think that's why I can get behind these projections here tonight. I'll definitely be in on this Boston 1 line. I agree with you. I don't think I'll be getting to any of the depth pieces. Maybe a little Elias Lindholm in a power play stack, because it is a pretty great power play matchup here for the Bruins tonight. But beyond that, I don't really have much interest in playing the Bruins. And similarly to you, I'm totally out on the Nashville Predators again.
Yeah, and for the projections, let's go back to that for a sec. I mean, they're very influenced, obviously, by time on ice, right? They're a time on ice statistic or projection. And since the break, David Pastrnak in 5 games has averaged 23.5 minutes per game. Morgan Geekie, 20 minutes, 7 seconds, and Pavel Zacha, 21 minutes, 38 seconds. So they're just playing a ton, and they're going to project well. And then when you take a guy out of the lineup like Brad Marchand, who eats a decent amount of minutes, the projection is going to go up even more. So, they project really well because they just aren't coming off the ice right now. They're literally playing over a third of the game, which definitely helps. If you, for whatever reason, have interest in playing the Nashville Predators, last game they went with 7 defensemen, 11 forwards. The lineup was an absolute just hodgepodge of different players playing together. This was the best that I could decipher what actually happened in that game. But if you are planning on playing the Nashville Predators, maybe to get a little bit different, it's just, be ready to pivot that these lines are probably not going to end up being what they are once the puck drops. The Islanders and the Jets. The Islanders second half of back-to-back. The Jets, obviously one of the best teams in the league. Huge favorites here. It obviously all depends who gets the start in net for the Islanders. Like, even if Sorokin starts in the second half of back-to-back, I'm still interested in the Wild a little, or in the Jets a little bit. But if he doesn't, obviously I think I'm going to upgrade them a little bit. And I think another thing to keep in mind is that the Islanders are looking like sellers at the deadline. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri are going to be in the lineup tonight unless we've missed something since coming live. I haven't seen anything to suggest that they're going to be out, but it's certainly a possibility. They obviously have two fresh bodies in Anthony Duclair and Pierre Engvall waiting there after being healthy scratched last night. They could easily slide back into the lineup. So just keep that in mind too. Obviously, you would want to upgrade the Jets if they sit. The Jets top line, we know how good that they've been and how good they are. They grade out fifth best night. They're seeing about 5% ownership. They're 20,200. The matchup here is terrific. Again, though, take this matchup with a grain of salt because we don't know 100% if the Nelson line is going to play. That's the line they're going to see a ton of tonight. The Nelson line's not been very good defensively. So lots to like here. About Winnipeg 1, especially if Sorokin doesn't start power play. They face the 24th ranked PK tonight, so obviously a good spot there. I don't mind getting to the Jets top line here tonight. I think against, I don't like them as much as I like Carolina, but I think that they're similarly getting overlooked a little bit given some of the other really good matchups on tonight's slate. I think this is a pretty good one against an Islanders team on a back-to-back. I've really liked playing Winnipeg 2 as of late. The matchup tonight, though, not great. And then where do they rank out overall? 14,500 though, still a reasonable price tag. I don't hate it, but probably find myself getting back to them on a different slate, not so much this one. With Hellebuck getting the start, I really just don't have any interest in the Islanders tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I'm probably going to pass on the Islanders. Again, just anytime I seem to play them, I just get absolutely bit. I got some interest here in Winnipeg 1. I don't think I'm going to get there too much, but I think 5-10% is more than fair for these guys, just given what they're able to do. It feels like they've let me down a little bit more than they've really helped me here as of late when I've been playing them. It feels like Mark Scheifele's shot volume's gone down a little bit here as of late. Same with Gabe Vilardi. I mean, Kyle Connor continuing to shoot the puck a lot as the main shooter on that line, 9.6 shots on goal per hour of ice time. I'm comfortable getting there on the field here in this spot. I mean, all three of these guys have had success against the Islanders. Vilardi, 4 goals, 5 points in 4 games. Scheifele, 4 goals, 9 points in 19 games. And Kyle Connor, 3 goals and 9 points in 13 games against the Islanders. So pretty simple for me. Pretty much Winnipeg 1 or bust here in this game.
The Jim brings up a great point here. Hopefully the Jets power play shows up. It's been ice cold lately. And yeah, I mean, their last, I don't recall who they played last, but last week I remember in 2 situations, very long 5-on-3 opportunities in which they were unable to convert, which is very unlike them given how potent that power play has been, all season. So I do think it's a power play unit that is likely to bounce back here before too long. If Skark gets the nod tonight, he has a 394 goals against average and 872 save percentage in his first 2 NHL appearances. Only 76 minutes there, so obviously a small sample size, but he's not Ilya Sorokin. If he ends up getting the nod tonight, which is probably a 50-50 shot, then obviously upgrade the Jets. Okay, let's move on to the Dallas Stars and the New Jersey Devils. Before I break this one down from a matchup standpoint, let's just take a look at the team chart here. This Dallas team is just in fuego. They are so hot. 3.06 expected goals for per 60, 3.72 actual goals for per 60 at 5v5. The power play is just humming. 33% shooting percentage is ridiculous. Now they run into a Devils team that's really struggling at 5v5 as of late. 3.11 expected goals against per 60. Far from ideal. The penalty kill has been okay. Take Jack Hughes out of the equation tonight. This is not a good matchup for the Devils. And this is a Dallas team that, really, when you look at it, isn't drawing a lot of ownership at all. Like, at all. 2% on Jason Robertson, 2% on Rupe Hintz. There's nothing coming in on the Dallas side of things tonight. And this is a spot that I really like. I think that they're super interesting. They don't grade out great either because they all play kind of an equal amount of ice time. But the power play matchup tonight is the best overall. They look phenomenal on the power play. And you take a look at this team as a whole as of late, Roope Hintz leading the way, 15 points in his last 10 games. Matt Duchene, 14 points. Jason Robertson, 14 points. Wyatt Johnson, 13 points. Thomas Harley, 12 points. I mean, 5 guys over a point per game over the last 10 games. They're just absolutely buzzing. Really, really think that Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson are the guys that I'm going to end up getting to the most. They've been great. I love the idea of a power play stack with Hintz, Robertson, and Thomas Harley tonight. I think it's a great spot. I think it's a great this offense has just been so insanely good as of late. I'm just going to keep going back to the well until they cool off. It's obviously going to happen eventually, but since coming out of the break, they've scored 4, 4, 4, 6, 6 goals. Their last 2 games before the break were 4 and 8. So they've scored at least 4 goals, and now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games. And they're averaging, like, I don't know, quick math, probably 5.5 goals over that stretch. Like, they've just been ridiculous. So I'm going to keep going back to the well there. Similarly, I don't hate the matchup and the numbers that we see here on New Jersey 1. The matchup's pretty good, 70.9 matchup score. Without Jack Hughes, they're going to put Hischier, Bratt, and Timo Meier together, if I recall correctly. Yes. And that's a trio that hasn't played together a ton this year, but they played together a lot last year, and the numbers were really, really good. Plus, you take Hughes out of the equation, should be more ice time for this line as a whole. And then you take a look here at the overall big board. 7th best line at target, just 16,500. Really, really like that price tag on them. Not seeing a lot of ownership. So I'll be getting to New Jersey 1 a little bit as well, but really going to be over the field on Dallas tonight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I mean, I don't know why such little ownership is coming in on these guys. I thought, okay, maybe, it's because of Jacob Markstrom being in the crease, which is certainly a possibility. But I mean, I pulled up his numbers, and he has not really been all that great against the Dallas Stars in his career. 16 games played, 3.14 goals against average, and an .893 save percentage. Granted, he was lights out against them in that one series between Dallas and Calgary back in 2021-22. But beyond that, he has not really had much success against the Stars. That top line, you mentioned it, Jason Robertson, on absolute fire right now. Over his last 20 games played, 2.5 goals per hour of ice time, 4.4 points per hour, 11.7 shots on goal per hour. He is just absolutely red hot. We were talking about like this Dallas 1 lineup, a couple of months ago, where it's kind of like, okay, like when are they really going to start firing on all cylinders here? Well, folks, they absolutely are firing on all cylinders right now. Roope Hintz has been great here as well as of late. 3.5 assists per hour over his last 20 games. Fair shot volume, 7.5 per hour. And Logan Stankoven, 9.8 shots on goal per hour as well. So finding a lot of ways to be productive here. I'll be well over the field on Dallas 1 tonight. I have no problem getting there when the public really isn't. They are grading out as a 23rd best line on the slate overall to target here. The matchup score isn't like tremendous or anything like that, but they are going to be seeing 47% of their ice time going up against that Devils top line, which is their poorest defensively. So I think this is a good spot here for Dallas 1. I'll probably mix in a little bit of these other lines, 5% full stacks maybe on Dallas 2 and 3, but I do have some interest, in going with Matt Duchene and Wyatt Johnson as well. I think they're pretty fair options, both on the top power play unit. Obviously, some correlation there with Thomas Harley as well. If you want to get yourself really different, maybe like a little Duchene, Johnson, Robertson, Harley stack or something like that, and spread your exposure out through all 3 of those lines. So, I have no issue getting there. For the Devils, for me, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to get there. I'm thinking this might be a bit of a letdown spot for them, figuring out what's going on with Jack Hughes, still trying to figure out how serious that injury is or not. I know there was a report that Luke Hughes was like super upset in the room the other night after the injury. So this feels like a letdown spot for the Devils. So fire me up on these Dallas Stars.
Since Christmas, we've got points leaders in the NHL. David Pastrnak 1, Leon Draisaitl 2, Nikita Kucherov tied for 3rd with Jason Robertson, who's just been unbelievable. 37 points in his last 27. Wyatt Johnson's 5th in the league with 35 points in his last 27. Matt Duchene, 8th in the league with 32 points in his last 27. So 3 guys inside the top 10 since Christmas. They've just been awesome. And if you go down a little bit further, Roope Hintz also over a point per game, 26 goals in his last 24 games. So the team's been buzzing, and I just don't think the price tag is where it should be, right? Robertson, 7,300 feels super affordable. I mean, he's $2,000 cheaper than Pastrnak. Obviously, the ice time's not quite the same, but Rupe Hands at 6K seems way too cheap. Stankoven has been solid on this top line, $3,900. Love getting to that price tag. And then the second line too, like Duchesne, we just talked about how good he's been since Christmas. He's $5,500. So yeah, count me in. That top line or that second line for the Dallas Stars, I didn't really talk about it much, but their underlying metrics quite strong as well. Just their matchup a little bit worse. Let's get to game number 8, I think. We've got the Colorado Avalanche and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Avs are the second biggest, or I think the second biggest favorites on the slate. Minus 264, 4.0 implied totals, the second highest. They face the Penguins, who are 231, plus 231 road underdogs here. It's kind of much of the same here with Colorado. Matchup's pretty good here. It's going to be a lot of top 6 against top 6, a lot of bottom 6 against bottom 6. Good matchup for Colorado 1. What's there to say about this line? They're insane. I guess the one thing you can say is that they actually should probably have more goals than they have, which is insane. 4.0 goals for per 60 is somehow 0.9 goals scored below expected. So they've just been unbelievable. This sample's getting upwards of like 130 minutes now at 5v5, and they just 4.9 expected goals for per 60 is redonkulous. So really good. Their power plays bounced back as well. 7th best over the last 10 games. Going up against a PK, that's pretty solid, but whatever. I don't care. Their 5v5 matchup is glorious. Top 6 here for the Penguins. Not good defensively. So, yeah, fire me up on Colorado 1. They're only projected for about 11% ownership as a whole. McKinnon coming in at 18.7. Obviously, a little bit higher. Netchas under 10% is great. You can include Lehkonen. It's worth mentioning. We didn't know last week whether Nichushkin would be on power play 1 or Lehkonen. Turns out the coaching staff isn't even really sure. They've literally been splitting the ice time dead even. Basically, Lehkonen takes like takes like the first power play, and Nichushkin takes the second power play, and they seem to just be alternating. Their power play 1 usage has been nearly identical since Nichushkin came back. So I don't mind including Lehkonen at 6,100. I also don't mind including Nichushkin. He's just been unbelievable since coming back. Just as advertised, right? The shot volume is insane. Just $5,900, 3.4% ownership. I love getting to this top 6 tonight. I don't mind going down to the second line. I don't love their upside, but they're super cheap, and it's hard to find cheap lines, and they're in a really good spot as well. Obviously, the same with the similar top 6 matchup. The underlying metrics with Nichushkin are much better than they were without him. So, if you need a value option, I don't think that they're the worst either. I find it a little bit more difficult to trust the Pittsburgh Penguins. The top line does grade out 10th best, but I'm similar to the public here, just 2% ownership. I'll probably just stay away from the Penguins as a whole tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Penguins here. I think it's the 8th or the 9th most expensive line on the slate here. $200 cheaper to full stack. You can just go with Buffalo 1, or $2,000 cheaper. You can just go with Dallas 1. Those both feel like much better options to me than the Pittsburgh Penguins top line. No disrespect to them, because I will play them in certain matchups. It just doesn't feel like this is a real great one for them here, going up against this Colorado Avalanche top 6. The top line for the Avs, like, what more can you say, man? They're projecting for 11% ownership. That's more than fair as the number 1 line to target overall on the slate. They are the highest owned line. I'll probably be a little bit over that ownership in terms of a full stack. I don't mind getting a little over the field on Arturi Lehkonen, only 6.9% nice projected ownership for him. 1.5 goals per hour over his last 20 games, not a ton of volume, but the guy's shooting 22% and has been doing so consistently all year long. So fire me up on this Colorado 1 side. Not entirely sure if I'll get down to Colorado 2 much, if at all. I think I might just be more comfortable going with some one-offs of Valeri Nichushkin, or mixing some Jonathan Drouin with some Colorado 1 stacks if I have the salary for it. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at this one.
Jim says Wedgwood and net does make Pitt a bit viable. I would agree, other than the fact that the Avalanche have probably been one of, if not the best defensive team on the slate as of late. The defensive metrics are, the lowest expected goals against per 60 at 5v5. Also, the PK has been just outstanding. They are the 3rd best PK overall. It's a tough matchup, even with Wedgwood between the pipes. I do think, I'm sure the Penguins can probably push 2 past Wedgwood tonight, 2 or 3 perhaps, but I just don't know if they end up being, kind of in the optimal lineup tonight. I just don't see it happening. Okay, the Oilers and the Ducks. Now, tale of 2 teams here, right? One team's supposed to be elite, one team's supposed to be garbage. The Oilers have been playing very poorly, coming off of a nice win the other day, but still not the best performance. I think you would agree there. The Ducks, meanwhile, find themselves awkwardly in the playoff picture in the Western Conference. They've been playing great. I've been talking about it for a few weeks now. The underlying metrics here are pretty good, at least from a defensive standpoint. Offensively, they're still pretty bad. The power play is a nightmare. Getting Trevor Zegras back tonight should help, but like I still don't think I'm going to end up with a lot of Anaheim exposure tonight in terms of the, maybe a late slate play. I think that they're probably more viable there. I don't mind getting to them. I've really liked what I've seen out of Anaheim 1 as of late. The underlying metrics have been strong all season. Ryan Strom's shot volume is coming around. I just don't think that I'm going to get there on the main slate. It just doesn't seem necessary. But I do think I'm a little bit more concerned about Edmonton than probably you are. We'll get to you in a second. Because the Ducks have looked pretty good defensively. Dostal's played very well this season. McDavid just still does not quite look himself. I just don't know if the Oilers are like this slate-breaking play tonight. It's obviously always possible. They're a team that is great on home ice. And, the power play advantage is not what it usually is. The Ducks' PK has been pretty good. So I think I feel more comfortable playing the Avs at a similar price than I do the Oilers tonight. I think that there's these other high-priced options that I feel a little bit better about. It's not to say I don't like the Oilers, but I do have some concerns. McDavid at $8,500. Obviously, that price point feels good. Draisaitl at $8,200. I think I prefer that, and that's probably the route that I'll go. Probably a little bit more Edmonton 2 than Edmonton 1, just for the salary relief, and you can pair them with some of these top end lines. Arvidsson's been really quiet though. Savoy's been whatever. So there's not a whole lot there outside of Draisaitl, but from a value perspective, I think it's okay enough. Talk me into the Oilers tonight. It's obviously it's the Ducks. Should I, am I overthinking it?
You might be overthinking a little bit, but I do kind of tend to agree with you here. I mean, the Oilers have just not looked right coming out of the Four Nations break. And even preceding that, there was a couple of games where they were kind of shaky at best, still managed to, I think it was 2-2 in their 4 games leading into the Four Nations face-off. The thing for me here is that like the Oilers have kind of been Ducks killers over the last couple of years. Specifically Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. 30 games played against the Ducks for Connor McDavid. He has 15 goals and 53 points. He's averaging almost 2 points per game against the Anaheim Ducks in his career. And Leon Draisaitl, 27 goals and 49 points in 35 games played. If you're playing the Oilers, maybe you just want to play a Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl mini stack and jam some value in around them. I think that's certainly a very viable way to go here with this Oilers team right now. I'm fine playing Matt Savoy at $2,500. If I'm playing Leon Draisaitl in any lineups, I am going to include Savoy there. This is his 4th game in the NHL with the Edmonton Oilers, that is. He had a nice assist in the first game against the Philadelphia Flyers. Even in the last couple of games, he's generated, I think, 9 scoring chances at 5-on-5. He's been around it, and Leon Draisaitl's been trying to feed him in the last couple of games that he played, trying to get him his first NHL goal. Interesting little story here. So apparently the Oilers are doing like a theme night tonight where it's like college night here in Edmonton. So they sold a bunch of tickets to students really cheap in the school year here. And this is Matt Savoy, who is an Edmonton boy, his first game on home ice here in Edmonton. So he's going to have a huge contingent of friends and family. A lot of his buddies, I guess, are in college right now at the U of A. So I'm kind of expecting a game from Savoy tonight. I think Draisaitl is going to try and feed him. Minimum price, $2,500. I think it's a fine play for me. I'm probably going to be a little over the field on both of these lines. I think 10% is more than fair here. It is a great matchup for the Edmonton Oilers. They have struggled as of late. I don't think this is necessarily a game where I'm going to do my typical jam as much Edmonton in as I can here, because the Ducks have been fairly solid as of late. But I still do like this spot here for the Edmonton Oilers.
You talk me into Savoy and Draisaitl minis for sure. Still not 100% sure I'm sold on Edmonton 1. The matchup's good. The ice time's good. The underlying metrics are good. I'll get there, just probably not as much as I would normally in an Edmonton Anaheim environment. These two teams have met twice this year, and the Oilers lost 5-3 in one game and won 3-2 in the other game. So they haven't necessarily been juggernauts against the Ducks so far this season either. I think that it's there's just a lot of good plays on tonight's slate, and I don't want to get too carried away with the Oilers, but you talked to me, that Savoy insider info is enough for me. I'm down for that one, especially at minimum price with a lack of value. Okay, final game of the night. Do we need to talk about it? It's C and Min here tonight. We've got a 2.9 implied total for the Kraken, 2.8 implied total for the Wild. Ryan Hartman returns from suspension. That should be fun. It is the lowest pacing game on the night. The matchups are bleak on both sides. The best matchup overall is Minnesota 1. And now just pause for effect. Look at these underlying metrics. Oh, baby. Damn, boy. It's bad. It's real bad. I'm not playing this game at all. None of it. I don't have any interest.
I really don't have a whole lot of interest here at all either. Like, I think you can get away with playing some Matt Boldy one-offs. I think that's probably going to be like as much as I can get to. 7K, he projects really well. I mean, 11.1 shots on goal per hour. He's like the only guy who shoots the puck on the Minnesota Wild. So I think that's fine. I don't think I'm going to get too much else in this game at all, though.
Let's take a look at the teams chart, see if we can find anything else. Nope.
I mean, the Kraken are on an absolute heater right now. If you want to kind of go that narrative, I suppose you could.
Shane Wright's going to keep shooting 30%. I'm in.
He might, honestly. Like, I could see it happening. I don't know, man. It does feel pretty gross.
I think I have interest in Philip Gustafson at $7,600. That's probably the extent of it for me.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be watching this Seaman tonight.
Yeah, Seaman sounds like a torture to watch. I agree. Seaman isn't going to be very fun tonight. Okay. Power plays, brutal. Moving on. Defenseman. Who do we want? Let's sort by ownership. Who is everybody playing? Vince Dunn? Sure. Hate that game. Darren Radish, not surprising. Shane Gostisbehere, not surprising. Clicked on the wrong guy. Shane Gostisbehere, Darren Radish, not surprising. Like both of them as well. Risto, not surprising. That's probably the extent of it.
I think John Klingberg, I don't mind John Klingberg as a value play. A little bit of a revenge narrative. You know, you had a cup of coffee with the Ducks. He grades out really well from a projection standpoint here tonight. 9 games played. He's finding some ways to be productive out there. We've been banging the drum about Jack Thompson finally paid off with a goal last night.
Finally.
Still has great shot and block volume at just $2,900. Our boy Mark Del Gaizo back in action, like 2 12-point performances back to back, 9 shots on goal in his last 2 games. So that's a decent route there for a cheap defenseman. Darren Radish, again, I think he's a really solid play at $2,800. That's probably where my interest is. A couple of decent value guys tonight, I think.
Yeah, I like John Klingberg as well. I think that's a solid show. I like Mason Lohrei again as well. $4,600. Who any like really these high end guys that you're planning on playing tonight? Like I don't mind getting to Darlene. Obviously Makar is always in play.
Thomas Harley at $6,100.
Yeah, Thomas Harley, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Jackson Lacombe, $4,900 is always in play.
Zach,
Werenski, we just talked about him having like a 9-point game against the Lightning early this season against Jonas Johansson, so obviously likes him. And I don't mind Victor Hedman either, $5,700. But Harley feels fun. I like Harley tonight a lot. Okay, let's get to the goalies. The top projected goalie of the night is Calvin Pickard. 76.7 implied win percentage is the highest of the night. Looked great the other night. I actually don't mind a Pickard play tonight at $8,400. Connor Hellebuck is projected to be the highest owned goalie of the night at $7,900 for obvious reasons. Really nice matchup. If any of those Islanders sit out, he might face 14 shots tonight, though. Scott Wedgwood feels a little bit dicier. I'd rather just pay down for Hellebuck, I think. Swayman feels awesome, $7,900. I'm down for that one. UC Saros similarly feels okay at $7,500. I just don't trust the Predators, and I do like Boston 1 quite a bit, so I probably won't end up getting there too much. DeSmith feels okay too with Jack Hughes out. He's won 4 in a row. The underlying metrics have been really, or not the underlying metrics, just the stats have been really solid on DeSmith as of late. So I don't hate that with Jack Hughes out, but yeah. Am I just missing? Oh, there he is. Philip Gustafson, $7,600. I mean, such a good price point for a guy in a game that's going to be 2-1. I guess you could say the same thing about Joey Decord. Dumpster diving tonight. Are you doing any dumpster diving, Zach? Like, this is supposed to say Gorgiev now. Maybe some Dostal at $7K for me. Definitely some Lion at $7,300. I think that they could just do their classic Corsi Canes thing tonight, and Lion could be viable there. But probably just Dostal and Lion for me if I'm dumpster diving. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm okay with getting to Lyon and Dostal. The rest of those guys down there at the bottom feel pretty gross to me. You could maybe talk me into a little bit of Sorokin at $7,500, but that doesn't even feel
Probably going to be sitting on the bench
greatest.
the whole game.
Yeah, exactly. Connor Hellebuck, I don't know how much I'm going to get there. The field's all over him at 15%, but again, like you said, like probably not going to be a whole lot of offense coming from that Islander side of things. Casey DeSmith, I think he's okay at 8K. Calvin Pickard, I think he's in a fine spot here tonight. I think he'll see a good amount of volume, which is how much the Ducks have been shooting as of late. That's probably where I'll be sticking with my goalies.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's get to today's hat trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, all you got to do is drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. If your player scores a hat trick tonight, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. You can pick up some daily Faceoff swag. If a player scores a hat trick and nobody picks him, we will raffle it off to anybody who submitted a hat trick pick. Zach, you won yesterday's head-to-head thanks to a Jack Thompson goal, so you can pick your hat trick pick first.
Thank you very much. Going to go with Leon Draisaitl tonight.
Okay, very simple, very easy. I'm going to go with Tage Thompson as my hat trick pick. Let's get to today's DFO head-to-head, our daily face-off head-to-head lineup challenge. Zach, as I said, you won yesterday, taking a 35-34 record on the season. Who do you got?
Yeah, I wanted to go with this stack of the the Colorado Avalanche here with Nathan McKinnon and Martin Necas. Obviously, they look to be in a great spot going up against Pittsburgh here tonight. Got the mini stack of Leon Draisaitl and Matt Savoy. Mixed John Klingberg in there as well. Klingberg plays a good amount of his ice time with that Leon Draisaitl line. Philadelphia One look like they're in a great spot here tonight. Well, with Noah Cates, Tyson Forrester mini stack. Connor Hellebuck just going to lock in a win there. And Vince Dunn at $4,400 feels like a good play on the blue line.
Yeah, it's a nice lineup. I like the fact that you can fit some Colorado One with Leon Draisaitl together tonight. Interesting stuff. My lineup is not typical of what I normally do, but I was running short on time, and here's what I got. I went with McKinnon and Necas as well. I also went with Cirelli and Hagel, a couple of mini stacks there. As I mentioned, I don't mind pairing them with Radish if I have to, save some salary. They do see a decent amount of 5v5 ice time together. Radish is just kind of a fine one-off play in his own right. And then I just stuffed in all my favorite or some of my favorite value plays around them. Yuri Kulich, love that Buffalo one line tonight. Matvey Mishkov, talked about him being a good one-off at 4,600. He's been red hot. And then you mentioned John Klingberg, 3K, really good one-off play as well. And then Philip Gustafsson between the pipes was all I had left for salary. That is going to do it for the session of the DFO DFS report. If you missed it yesterday, I just want to remind you, it's a busy week here across the Nation Network. Lots of great trade coverage. Daily Faceoff, we're going to have we're going to have a live show during the trade deadline. We're going to have articles going up. We got a trade tracker, lots of fun stuff at Daily Faceoff. All of the other team sites like Zach's Oilers Nation, going to be covering them from a team perspective. So we're going to be really busy at the Nation Network this week. We're going to try to come live every single day except for Friday, the actual trade deadline day. So hopefully if everything goes well tomorrow and Thursday, we'll be back. But just keep it in mind. I'll let you know on Twitter and stuff if we're not going to make it. But we do plan on coming live both Wednesday and Thursday. But who knows what could happen during trade deadline week. Best of luck tonight. Hopefully return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. Show, as always, to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for tonight's show. It really has leveled up the show. And if you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders NHL Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Also in the description is the link to our DFO Discord. Join the community, and we'll see you there. Until then, see you tomorrow. Cheers.
Cheers.